good morning, everyone, and welcome to MACMH's Community Podcast Series. Here, let me get this off of here real quick. There's no sense of having that on yet. All right. We are here to inform, inspire, and support. I'm the host, Twana Anderson, and the Community Engagement Director here with MACMH. And I want to say thank you for taking time out of your day today to tune in. Here, we invite our partners to join us for a conversation about the organization's service to the community, challenges that they are facing, and their future plans, all the while weaving principles throughout to help you have an impact on a child's mental health journey. We are streaming this episode live, but it will be available anytime you feel like learning something about children's mental health and the community that serves them. If you enjoy this video, please help spread the word. This is actually our very first podcast series, and we may be just a little bit nervous. I said that yesterday in our first podcast. I want to make sure that I let everybody know, listen, this is new to us, and we are finding our way. Also, during this episode, we'll make references to books, articles, other information that will support the knowledge that you'll gain during our time together today. You'll find those links in the description along with contact information for our guests so you can stay connected. I also want to encourage the audience to respectfully ask questions for our guests in the YouTube chat. We'll keep an eye on things and we'll see if there's time at the end to actually answer any of these questions, but it would be nice to have a couple that we can answer at the end. So the Minnesota Association for Children's Mental Health has a mission to promote and pursue optimal mental health from infancy to young adulthood. Every topic of this podcast is approached with an open and critical mind, exploring opportunities to view circumstances through a different lens. Being in this place means that we advocate for all children to have equal access and opportunities to develop the skills to nourish their lives. We begin to help others remove their blinders while we're also being challenged to remove our own. We need to see other people, appreciate their perspectives, and perhaps even learn from their journeys. We are centering our conversation today around infant and early childhood mental health principles that's used by Minnesota's Montessori family, how they nurture and support children's mental health, as well as the staff serving their students. And then, of course, in case you didn't know, they have a very distinctive connection to the community. And we want to make sure that we talk about all of those things today. So let's meet our guests. So if you tuned in yesterday, you already know who Nora Springer is. She's the Director of Outreach and Licensed Social Worker for the Montessori Center of Minnesota, providing mental health consultation, social and emotional intervention support, and a resource and referral services to partner schools in their program that's called Montessori Partners Serving All Children. Let's bring Nora on. Hi, Nora.
Hi, it's good to be back.
And it's nice to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. You know, you're kind of the string that's woven through all of these conversations. So I appreciate you taking the time out to be with us for each episode.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. And we are also being joined by Diana Alvarez Forero. Now, I've been working on my rolling R's. I hope I did that okay. Diana is the Early Childhood Programs Director at the Centro Tyrone Guzman. She first joined Centro in 2017. She's overseen the Siembra Montessori Early Learning Program since 2020. And before coming to Centro, Diana worked in Colombia and in the UK. She worked in private and public sectors in Colombia for 6 years. And then in the UK, she worked for nonprofits that assisted immigrants in accessing education and legal services. She's also worked in local government and the municipal level in Princeton, New Jersey, focusing on affordable housing and human services. Help me, join me in welcoming Diana. How are you doing?
Great, thanks for having me today. This is my first time doing a podcast, so I'm very glad to be here and to talk a little bit about our organization and the amazing things that are happening in Centro, and especially in Siembra. That is one of our most beloved programs at Centro.
Oh, yes, I love it. And the great thing about Centro is that even though our focus is children's mental health and early childhood learning, the connection that you have to community goes far beyond that. And I think that making sure that we get a really good grasp of what that feels like for y'all is really important because children really do connect all of our generations, don't they?
They do, and that's one of the special things that we have at Centro, that we serve the entire family. So there are like an intergenerational programming here that is happening every day at Centro. So we focus not only in our children, we focus in the entire community, because if our entire community is safe and they feel that they belong, our children are going to be safe too, and they're going to be happy. They're going to be social global citizens, that at the end is what we want with them, because they are bicultural. They have both languages, and they have to learn how to interact with different cultures in the United States.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Like I'm so excited. My the sign that I'm always in the right place, doing the right thing with the right people is when I get goosebumps. And I always get goosebumps when I'm talking with anyone in the Montessori family. So I've been with MACMH just a little more than a year now. I was at our IAC conference where I was formally introduced to Montessori schools at Nora. That's the first time we met. Then we met again at the Minnesota Association for the Education of Young Children's Conference. That's NACE. Then I was able to meet the founders and directors of culturally specific Montessori schools. And that's where we met, Diana. And it is the integration of infant and early childhood mental health principles that caught my attention, because there is a direct connection to working with children from infancy to age 6. It naturally brings parents and caregivers along in their journey. And many of us grown-ups, we really don't have a clear understanding of our children's mental development. And choosing mental health providers with IEC certification kind of puts any family ahead of the game and sets their child up for success. So this matters to me because now my focus is on my grandchildren and the ones that I have and the ones that are not even here yet, and their educational foundation. So I appreciate Montessori's approach to developing young children. And then I also just want to say real quick that this is my personal opinion. This is where I stand. I want to take a moment to just mention that this podcast conversation is not an endorsement of Montessori schools and their particular principles. We are sharing options and opportunities that exist in our communities throughout the Twin Cities. So that's what we're going to do today. All right, so let's start off with personal stuff real quick, or maybe not real quick. Please take your time. I don't want you to be rushed. And just telling us about your career and your journey to your present, kind of outside of what I briefly mentioned in your bio.
So Nora, do you want to go first, or I can go first?
Why don't you go first, Diana? I talked a lot yesterday.
Okay. So I have a background in finance, and that was my job in Colombia. And I was doing a lot of numbers and working in a corporate level in Colombia. But I felt that something inside me was missing. While I was good at my job, I wanted to do something different. So a change in the society. And I left Colombia in 2011. I went to live in the UK, and that was the opportunity to change my career, and I started working with communities. So I joined this organization, was supporting immigrants in the UK in helping them access services, educational, legal, anything that they needed. That was where I found my passion for community approach, and starting programs from the community. And then I moved back to the US in 2013, and I lived in Princeton, New Jersey, and I joined the municipality working doing a needs assessment. So because that combined my background in finance and work with the community, it was a high opening for me, because Princeton, New Jersey is a wealthy town. You cannot imagine that there are a lot of needs for many residents. So I was working closely with the community, and I learned so much about the barriers that USA citizens they have here in this country that I didn't know. So it was like, okay, there are so many things that we can do, and many problems in our society started in early childhood. So it was like, oh, we could help our children, if we could give them the right environment, this society will be different. We will be social changers, like we have so much things to do for the society. And in 2017, I moved to Minnesota, and I learned about Centro, and then applied for a position as the financial manager. So I went back to my background in finance. But in 2020, I started leading the Department of Early Childhood and working closely with families and children. It was there when it was during the pandemic, so it was very hard to have our preschool open, and we were starting a new program, a home visiting program, and creating the curriculum, the community. We did so much, but we faced so many barriers too, because we didn't find the right staff, families that were facing so many problems. So at the end, the last 4 years have been a roller coaster for me, but at the same time, I see so many accomplishments that we have reached as a team, as an organization, as a community, that seeing both programs, the home visiting program and the Siembra Montessori, getting ready.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, did she freeze on me?
She's frozen for me too.
Oh no. Gotta love live TV though, right? Let me
Yeah.
see if I can remove her
Can
and then
you?
add her back in.
Oh, she's back.
Oh,
Hey, you're
sorry. So I was okay. Sorry about that. So I was just telling that we are expanding our home visiting to rural areas. We are opening our second classroom at Siembra, and we are dreaming big, and we want to accomplish more things, because we know that the work what we're doing with the community, because it's not just our work, it's the work with the community. It matters, and it is important for our children.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I love that you come from a finance background and now you are working with children. But I have to believe that that background is very helpful when you're running departments and establishing new programming. And because budgeting is really important, as we all know, right?
I think that's one of the most fun things about working with Deanna is how her mind works and can braid different funding streams together and access this and make it happen there. It's really been fun to see how her mind has been able to grow the program in creative ways, being able to use that finance background.
I love that. I love that. And Nora, we met you yesterday, but I will have to assume that there are people who are joining us right now that didn't hear about how you got to where you are. So just briefly, I don't want to put you through as much as you said yesterday. Tell us how you got here.
Yeah, I think something that connects me closely to Centro Tyrone Guzman. I did live for a year in Peru back in my 20s, and then with my work with Early Head Start and Head Start in the Twin Cities, I really got a deeper understanding of immigration issues, especially with the Latina community. And so getting to be able to work with Centro has been a real gift in that way, to be able to serve the community. MCM has been working with Centro since about 2011, 2012, and I've gotten to work with both the early childhood Montessori program and the home visiting team within the past 6+ years that I've been here. So I've learned just as much as I've been able to support. And it's been a really great partnership.
I love that. I love that. And you said MCM, and I don't know if I kind of spelled out where you work, but MCM is the Montessori Centers for Minnesota.
Yes.
Of
Montessori
Minnesota.
Center.
I always get that preposition wrong, of Minnesota.
Yep.
And so thank you for joining us again today, Nora. And you mentioned a little bit about working specifically with Centro. And I want to hear a little bit more about that. But before we jump in, Deanna, Nora gave us another little tidbit of something that we did not know about her, that she lived in Peru for a year. And I'm just curious about something that you can share with us that we wouldn't find on your resume about yourself, Deanna.
About myself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I travel a lot, and I had been in contact with many cultures, and I was the middle child, and it wasn't easy for me as a middle child. I have a son that he's 7 years old, and I have learned so much with him. Yeah.
Yes. Seven. My baby is 33. I remember I remember those times very much. Okay, so Deanna, I know that you touched on a lot just as you were introducing yourself and talked about your journey, but what else about the unique and wonderful history that you have with Siembra? Tell us a little bit about the history of how Siembra became a part of Centro, because I don't think that Centro did not start with Siembra. So tell us a little bit about how that came about.
So I'm gonna give a little bit of overview of our history. So Centro was founded in 1974. This year is gonna be our 50th anniversary, sorry. Yes. And so it started with women that wanted to learn English. And what they did was that a group was learning English, the other group was taking care of the children, so they can have classes. That was very informal, and then we started with a senior group, with a youth group, but it was in 1998 that Tyrone Guzman had a vision that childcare, at that time, it was a childcare, was important for our community. Why? Because we need a safe space for our children, be cultural place where they can communicate with teachers, because sometimes for our community they found a place but they couldn't communicate with the staff, and it was hard for them to know if the children were doing well, what's going on at the school. So he had that vision, and it was the first time that we got the license to be a childcare, a DHS license in 1980 with Tyrone Guzman. In 2000, Tyrone Guzman died in 2009, and it was Roxana Linares who started to lead the organization. And 2 years later, she met Molly O'Shaughnessy from the Montessori Center. At that time, Molly was the head of Cornerstone and the Montessori Center. And Molly had the same vision to bring Montessori to underserved communities. So they clicked. They have the same goal. They have the same. They have that ambition to open schools in other communities. And Roxana started working closely with Molly and the Montessori Center. And a year later, we opened Siembra as a Montessori school. So it's been almost 12 years of this journey. And since then, Montessori has infused the entire organization. So all our programming is based on Montessori principles. Just not the preschool, but for our youth, for our elders. We have a micro enterprise that produce Montessori boxes for our families, and it's a collaboration between youth and elders. And we have a recipe program that have activities in the Montessori way for elders, so they can reclaim their previous roles. They can be independent again, because sometimes when we're little, sometimes we don't feel like we children can be independent. That's the mindset that we have before we learn Montessori. But we and when we get older, sometimes we feel like our elders cannot be independent either. So that's what we want to bring again, that independence, that they feel the confidence, that they're able to do things, they can contribute to the community. So Montessori had infused our entire organization. So we are intergenerational programming. We have international programming, and the Montessori principles are across all our programs. And when we created our Montessori home visiting program in Pequeño Mundo in 2020, it was a co-creation with the community. We didn't say, oh, the community needs this, so we're going to do it this way. No, we talked to the community and asked them, what do you want? What do you need? How we can collaborate? How we can do this so our children are going to be safe? So it was a 2 years journey with the community. We have a year like planning the curriculum and another year to pilot the curriculum. And we got a lot of feedback from the community, things that they loved, things that didn't work. And at the end, we have a solid programming right now, and we are expanding to rural areas. We are going to have our first employee in rural areas. So we know that when we work in community, with the community, a lot of things can happen. Of course, it's an effort from everyone, but we can achieve a lot of things for our children, because in 2020, when I came, I saw a lot of dysregulated children because of the pandemic. So Montessori really helped the family to understand how to support the, their children, because they didn't know. They didn't know how to support them while they were home. So some children came to our school, and some children stayed at home. And we provided like a curriculum for the parents, a Montessori curriculum, and we set them activities every week so they could incorporate the Montessori philosophy while they were at home. And we give them some tips to the parents about how to implement Montessori, how to create independence and confidence in their children. So when those children came to Siembra, they were they weren't. I mean, they were better, and they understood the dynamics in the classroom.
Mhm.
I just think that's awesome. And since we are kind of on this road, kind of had a different flow for our conversation, but let's continue and just talk a little bit more about all of the programming that you have at Siembra, how that program has expanded to reach all intergenerationally within your community, families and communities. So let's talk a little bit more about all of your programming before we get back into just what Siembra does.
Mhm.
So Siembra became a Montessori school in 2012. And in 2017, the organization was doing a vision for the next 3 years. And many programs were amazed about what we have done in Siembra with our children. And they say we should incorporate the Montessori philosophy in all our programming. So many of our staff went and took many Montessori like trainings, depending on the department they were working. So, for example, for the elders, for the adult energy program, they took a training for elders, Montessori principles for elders. For the youth, they took some courses about Montessori, how they could implement Montessori for youth. So that way we started to think about it, how we could incorporate those principles. That sometimes it's not that complicated, it's to think a little bit outside the box. So they were creating presentations for the elders. So there was an example about an elder that she loved to pray. So, and she was losing her memory. So they create a material that she can have like a puzzle about a play that she knows by heart.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so amazed about that she could do it, and she was connected her memories with that material. So
Mm-hmm.
that way we started to create that capacity in our programming.
Wow.
And many other activities that were very individualized depending of the interest of each elder or participant
Mm-hmm.
had in their lives, in their experiences, things
Mm-hmm.
that connected them with memories. So there were so many like materials that they did for each of them, because we have a part of the programming that we have in elders is a memory loss. So
Right.
we try to connect them with memories so they connect the present with the past, and they can be present in the moment. And it's so beautiful when for 5 minutes, 10 minutes they're present.
Can
Um,
I add to that piece of it?
yeah,
A lot of people think of Montessori as early childhood, but there's training specifically on how to use Montessori principles with aging and dementia adults, because it's the same concept of increasing independence for our children, especially with elders and adults who have memory loss and dementia. A lot of their independence is taken away. So it's those same principles of order, simplicity, beauty, and then those freedoms that Molly talked about yesterday, the freedom to choose, the freedom to move, and the freedom to repeat. So if we have a prepared environment specifically to address those needs in the elders, then that increases their independence, even though they may have dementia or memory loss. And so Centro has really taken that idea and built some beautiful programming around increasing independence, especially for the Latina elders and recent immigrants to feel more at home.
I think that that's pretty amazing. You mentioned COVID, Diana, and COVID changed a lot for a lot of people.
yeah.
And during COVID, I worked for a food bank, United Food Bank in Mesa, Arizona, and I got the opportunity to meet with a lot of. I literally visited every food bank that we had as a partner, and I'm telling you, it was such. If it wasn't in the middle of COVID, it would have been an amazing experience. But what I learned in those visits is that in the Latina community, you're more often to see a village in a household. Like, we all grow up, it takes a village, but we don't think about it being in the household. So there's usually multi-generations living under one roof. And so the fact that you're able to weave the Montessori principles throughout infancy, childhood, and then in aging adults is an amazing concept. Were you the one that thought about that, Diana? Like bridging
No,
that?
no, I'm
Okay.
not gonna take credit for that. No, it was Roxana Linares. I mean, it started with Tyrone, but Roxana, she did it. I mean, it was a dream, and then it became a reality in our organization. Um, but she was a visionary, so she was the one that, okay, let's work together. We have this program here, this program over here, and we can have a connection and interaction between two groups, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes the elders, they come to the classroom and read the stories to the kids, to the children, and sometimes during COVID, we did an intergenerational gardening, because elders were isolated and we had few children in the classroom, but we couldn't go outside to our playground because there were some. I mean, we are located in the intersection of Franklin and Chicago in Minneapolis, and there were many things going around, so it wasn't safe to be outside at that
Right.
moment. Now we go outside. So at that time, we thought, let's bring our green inside. Let's bring plants inside and have a garden inside and learn about plants, about herbs. So in Montessori, we don't use technology, but because COVID, it was the only way that we could connect with the elders. Once a week, we have a meeting through Zoom with the elders, and children were given presentations of what have they learned about plants. And if there's, oh, I remember you can cook, you can make pesto with albahaca. Albahaca is basil, or you can use the cilantro to your tacos. So they were talking about food. They were talking about things that how to measure a plant, how big was the plant, as we was smaller. So it was an interaction with the elders, and at the end we create a book about the experience that we have during that year.
Yes, I have. I have those packages for cookbooks, and we're going to find a way through this podcast. We're going to find a way to give those out to the community. So we're not going to do it during this episode, of course, but we're going to figure out how to use this podcast and provide those wonderful gifts to people in the community. So I can't wait until we do that. And it's everything is just so interesting. When you talk, it warms my spirit, because there are so many unique things that y'all are doing. What else? So what other values maybe set you apart from traditional Montessori schools? What other approaches do you have that's a little bit different, even though you're still in line with Montessori principles?
So the beautiful thing about Montessori is that you can have a Montessori in any culture. So our programming is cultural based. So our school is very Latino. So you come to Centro and you're gonna feel like you are in Latin America. Feel the colors, the art. So our classroom is very cultural specific, and we use a lot of cultural specific approach while we're conserving the Montessori principles. So Montessori is universal. So as Nora was saying, the prepared environment. So our environment is cultural prepared environment. So we have beautiful colors, art, and materials that are relevant for our community in the classroom. The prepared adult. So our staff is bilingual, bicultural. They understand the challenges that our community face every day, right? And we are like, they have so many trainings, so we send them to trainings with the Montessori Center, or we find another way to connect them with resources that they need in order to have an environment that is safe for our children. We talk a lot about trauma, and I think it's been something that we have been talking the last 4 years more, because COVID was traumatic for everyone, and most for children, our children. So the children that I have right now in the preschool were children that were born during the pandemic. So they have other challenges that probably we didn't see before, because the adults were facing other, hard things. And that, if the adult is not prepared, the child is gonna feel it, right?
Yeah.
So we prepare our staff about trauma informed practices. We started a reflection practice with Nora. She can talk a little bit about that later. And she supported a lot, support our preschool and the maternal, the home visiting program with reflection practices. So everything here at Siembra is rooted in our culture, in the Latina culture. But of course, we embrace that we are different. We are Latino, we share a language, but we are very different. We have different experiences, we have different backgrounds. So we have to embrace that, because even though that we are the same ethnicity in the census, we face different challenges too. So we embrace diversity in our own community.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Nora, you want to go ahead and take a moment and just talk a little bit about what Deanna led you into?
Yeah, of course. Well, and what I love about what Deanna said is Montessori is for any culture, and it's also for any space. And so whether you are able to access a program or not, you're able to do Montessori principles within your own home environment, which is really how their home visiting program got established, was by wanting to access or reach those families out in rural areas and incorporate Montessori principles to be able to support their children's development. So I was really excited when they were first awarded the Community Solutions Grant through the state to be able to phase in their home visiting program, as a home visitor myself for 7 years. And so this was really a program that continues to be near and dear to my heart, especially in the unique way that Centro is doing it, having launched during the pandemic and needing to do it remotely. They've actually been able to reach more families that way. Reflective consultation was extremely important in my professional development. And so that was something I definitely wanted to bring into the community, bring along with me in this role as social worker with MCM. And so I've done that in various capacities, depending on what the schools need. Also, I'm not going to force it into community where it's not necessarily wanted, but Deanna has always been open and wanted that type of support for her staff. And so, and then, with Deanna's creative brain, she was able to pair it with some funding to do reflective consultation in partnership with a local artist. So we have gotten to do some really great reflective consultation sessions, while also working with our hands, which is, therapeutic in so many different ways and is very Montessori also. So that's been really exciting for me as someone who is more of a craft supply collector than an actual artist. It's been fun to work with the Centro community to do those reflective supervisions in tandem with Monica, who is the artist there, and to do that with the home visiting team. It's been a really exciting innovation of processing the work to be able to do the work for the families.
That's awesome. Reflective supervision, reflective consultation is uniquely intertwined with IEC principles. And IEC is just infant and early childhood. And that's what I really love about the field of infant and early childhood, because it really is holistic, from the child to the caregiver to the provider who are helping families along, their children's mental health journey. That's what I really appreciate about Montessori schools, the Montessori way. Deanna, how do you participate in reflective supervision? How does that strengthen the work that you do?
So I have my reflective practice supervision. Practice with Nora, which is like when I need to have that reflection of what's happening and why. But the team, the home visiting team, they have like their part with Nora. But I do often do one-on-ones with each member of my team to just talk. We don't have something like with a structure, because sometimes I like to have those conversations. Sometimes we talk about our work, what we're doing, and sometimes just things that are personal for them, and it's bothering them, like they don't feel like are connecting with their work. So I try to have conversations at least one a week with each of them, so I know what's happening in their life, what's happening at work, and how we can support them. So like sometimes I learned that they have an ambition to become a doula, and one of the home visitors is taking the training to be a doula, and I have the opportunity because someone told me I have this training, and I know someone that wants to be a doula. I'm gonna connect that person with that member of my team, but that was part of a conversation that didn't have any structure. I was like, okay, we are going to talk about this and that, because sometimes when you put in a structure, it's not going to leave room for things that probably are important, but because it's not part of the agenda, you don't want to talk about that.
That's great. I love that IEC principles are expanding to prenatal because, like I said yesterday, children's learning actually does begin in the womb. So, again, I just love the fact that IEC principles embraces all of that, the totality of the development of our children. I just love it. So we talked about a lot here today, and I do want to just cover some of the challenges that you face. And Deanna, you mentioned a few of them in the beginning of our conversation, but let's talk about what are the barriers that parents face to be able to send their children to Siembra?
Oh, they had so many challenges, but they're so resilient too. So I admire them. But when I receive a call from a parent, the first things they ask me is um, tuition and what time is the schedule, what time, how long they can stay here, right? Because they're working families, and they want to have jobs that can like give them a way to live, right? So we are almost tuition free. They contribute because we want them to feel that they're contributing to the life of the children. So they pay around $25 per week. So and the rest is like we do a lot of fundraising, scholarships from the Department of Education, um, foundations, um, and tuition, and a little bit of the tuition. Another like the challenge is that we try to open 7:30 so they can come here and leave their children in a safe space so they can go back to work, and we stay open until 5 o'clock. So it's enough time so they can find a 8 hour job if they need to. Um, and when we starting every time, every day, I open the door for the families, and I have little conversations with them. So I started learning what's going on at home, and I learned stories about separation, like they left half of the children in their home countries. Sometimes I learn about that they don't have a safe place to live, that they lose their jobs, that they're having problems with the landlord, that they don't have insurance. But those conversations happen at the door. So I have to be very strategic in the questions that I ask because it's a short conversation. And the next day I ask another question. So I learn more about each family and how we can support each of them. Because of course they come to our environment, but we want to continue that at home. So we talk a little bit about how they can support the children. And if I see that a family is facing like they cannot access food, we have a program, a nutrition program. So okay, I'm gonna this person is sex to food, so I'm gonna give them a food basket next time when we buy, or we have a garden during the summer. So I know that that family needs more vegetables because they are facing a hard time at the moment. But maybe the next time they don't need it because they are in a better situation. Another family is facing the same, like another, like something similar. So they understand. They understand that they can take turns. They understand that if I'm right now in a safe place, I can give more resources to other families because they see that there are other families that are in need at the moment. So it's a conversation. We all have every day. I have conversation with the families, so I know what's going on. I know the name of all of the members. So if they tell me that Abuelito Pablo is gonna come, I will never forget that. Some child have an abuelito that is called Paulo, and I always ask for that, so I create that connection with the families, so I can support them in a better way. But of course, we face immigration, we face housing. Sometimes they have a lot of like court days that they have to go to the court because they are facing like a case of immigration, food insecurity. So there are many language barrier that they don't know how to, and learn English, or they don't have time to do it. Um, and at the same time, many of our parents, the level of education was third grade, so they don't know how to write or read even in Spanish. And many of them, they don't speak Spanish as a first language. So it's a barrier that they are ashamed and are not going to understand their language. So I always take time. If I don't understand something, I try to approach it so they don't feel embarrassed, because of course we in Latin America sometimes we don't understand each other because we use different purpose. But sometimes they feel that it's because they don't have the education. So I always try to say, and I will try to tell them that that happened to me too. So they feel like they are in a safe space. And another situation that they have is that they don't trust schools because the experiences in their home countries weren't the best. So I have a case of a parent that she was very afraid to leave her daughter here. And one time she was crying and she pushed the stuff and entered of what's going on. And when she saw that nothing happened, she was like ashamed. And I told her like, yeah, like what happened? And she was telling me that it was a reaction because she had trauma about what happened to her and to her older son in her home country, that he thought that we were doing something to her daughter. And she
Yeah.
saw that she was crying for like something that we even wasn't touching her. So, and then she was like, I need to heal that and trust you. And now the relationship is beautiful. She trusts us. She knows, she understands that her daughter is in a safe space. And that's was the most important part, that we want to build that trust with our parents.
Yeah. I think that's across all cultures, being able to trust the people that you leave your children with. That takes an enormous amount of trust. Leaving your children with what starts out to be strangers, really. And so, I feel like because you are centered in those, IEC principles, and you have a very, the Montessori way is just so tried and true. It's foundational, I believe. And so I can understand parents' trepidation, but I definitely understand how they do get to a level of comfort there. When I was there at Centro Diana, I took pictures and I wanted to share them today because the environment is amazing, just colorful and it's inspirational. There's so many wonderful things. I could not find the pictures in my camera. So I'm so sorry. I looked, I'm like, I know I took these pictures. I just don't know where they are. But it is definitely a very beautiful, beautiful place.
Well, and I think that the trauma of immigration is something that you are navigating with such beautiful grace every day. Because to be able to support families who, have come a long way or are in fear of deportation, or children who have families that are torn apart, it's just another level of intensity of trauma that not everyone has to face on a daily basis. And you and your staff really are doing incredible work to support the children and families who attend.
And not only that, Laura, I don't know that just regular folk, and I know using that term is less and less popular, but I don't know that we even think about trauma being associated with immigration. So it's a learning a place for all of us to learn and think about those things that are outside of what our daily lives look like.
Yeah. It is traumatic, and in different levels. I came to the United States because my husband is a U.S. citizen, so probably my experience is not the same as other parents here. But it was traumatic for me because I have to leave my country to talk in another language, and sometimes I feel like I need to think sometimes in Spanish, and sometimes I'm talking in Spanish, but I'm thinking in English. And I left my family. I started from zero here because nobody know me, um, and I have to eat different food, and it was hard, and it's still sometimes that it's like why I am here. I mean, like, and
Mm,
for many of them, they experienced traumatic things before they came here, and that's the reason because they left their countries because
Right.
they were facing safety issues, and they decided that the best way was to have another traumatic experience before they arrive here. And they
mhm,
continue, and so they're so resilient too. Like they
mhm,
continue, they have hopes, they have dreams,
mhm,
even though that they have that traumatic experience. And I know, and I admire them so much every day that they come
mhm,
here. And
mhm,
sometimes they need to walk because they don't have a car access, or they don't have a license, they don't know how to drive. And they take the bus in the coldest day because they want their children to come to see them.
mhm. Well, and Centro does such a great job of really holistically supporting the family and providing as many services as possible as an organization, especially, in all the resource and referral that Deanna and I have partnered on over the last how many ever years. It's really difficult to find both a culturally relevant support for the family, whether that's, therapist or someone, an audiologist, whatever the child or family needs, finding someone who's bilingual and understands that experience of the family is really important and can be a barrier at times.
Deanna, is that something that you do for your parents, for your families? Do you offer translation support? Like if they need someone to just be at maybe an appointment or something, is that a resource that you have there at Centro?
We do. I mean, with some families, they ask for help at Siembra. With the home visit visiting program, we do more often, like the translation to be during the appointments. But anytime that a party need guidance, we give them guidance of where to find the right help. And if we see that a child needs a referral, we do a referral. But we work with the family so they know why the referral. It's not just like it's a conversation with the family, and we work with the family first, and we prepare the family, and then we do the referral for the children. And it's like we always tell them, and the Minneapolis Public Schools, they come here and give us the support if we need a specialist. A therapist or whatever the child needs, they come here. So I'm very happy that they're open to come to other to schools. But of course, our part is to work with families so they are prepared, because sometimes it's not easy for them to know that, and it's a taboo in our culture to talk about that. Probably your child needs an extra support. So we always explain them it's better to have the support now and don't wait until it's not going to be never too late, but don't worry that it's better to start early, right? So we have sometimes that they hesitate, like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, I want to wait. But as soon as they give us the green light, they see the difference. They see that the school, the specialized help, and the family, the three components, is the best way to support the children. And then they are, oh my God, thank you, because I wasn't ready for this. And there are so many taboos in our culture that if they receive this support, they're gonna be labeled forever. So it's that's part of our job to dismantleize taboos in our community too. and to connect them with resources, and probably resources that they don't know that exist, because in our home countries they are they don't exist.
Yeah.
So that's our job too with the families.
Awesome. Are you I love the fact that tuition is virtually free for y'all, but are there funding supports that you are receiving, and what do you still need? Do you have a need for funding? And I know that's a tongue-in-cheek question because no, we got plenty of money, but
No, we need funding. I mean, it's always good to have a secure funding. We have received, we have trust in our community, but our funders have trust in our organization. So we have had like consistent funding from many foundation for many years. Is allowed to say names, or I don't want to say names. It's not allowed.
you don't have to say names.
Okay.
No need to say names.
Okay. So yeah, funding is always needed because like we want to increase the salaries of our staff. Something that we learned from the pandemic is that our staff is so qualified but underpaid, and we cannot continue treating our the early childhood educators that way, because they are guiding our future. I mean, they're working with our children, with the future leaders, and how we can pay that little. Like, I was amazed how little they were making, and we have been increasing our staff salaries the last 4 years. So it's been like getting better, but I know that we would love to have more funding so they have a better salary, like much better than they have right now.
Mhm.
Because all of our staff have a background in education. We support them with a Montessori training. So this summer we are going to send 3 staff to take the training and the lead guide training. So we support them with tuition. We support them. We continue paying their salaries so they can go and learn without thinking about how are gonna survive this year, because it's an intense course. So we give them the opportunity so they can learn and be in a peace of mind that they're gonna continue receiving the same amount that they used to before they take it to training. And that takes resources, of course. It takes time, it takes effort for all the team, but if we have more funding, we can support better our staff and our children, our families, and everybody is going to be in a better environment.
I love that. I love that. I also feel like I say that a lot during these podcasts, but I do. I love, the conversations. I love the connections that you have with your children and families and your communities. I love that you're a resource for them. I just all of that is so important, and I appreciate the lesson that I've learned today, and I've learned I've learned a lot today. I did take a look. There are no questions in our chat, but I just want to leave with thinking about the best part of what you do. Like, what is the best part of what you do? And I want y'all to both chime in on this, and then just quickly let me say you're listening to a Minnesota Association for Children's Mental Health podcast. We're leading with knowledge, compassion, and support. Please take a moment to follow our channel, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future podcasts. And I have this little thing I want to see just to make sure that you can still hear me as I play this wonderful little what do you call this, asset, I guess. But let's go back to talking about the best part of what you do, and then maybe the most frustrating part of what you do.
So the best part is to help our community to lift their weight, the things that are heavier for them. We help them. So it's not going to be all of on them, right? So we provide a safe space for the children. We provide connections with resources. We provide joy because we have beautiful programming too. So at least they can come and dance and connect. So that's the best part of my job. The hardest part is sometimes we face so many barriers. So we need to be creative, and that's why. So sometimes it's like, oh, we don't have funding. Oh, but we could connect this with that, so we can create something new, something relevant for our community. So that's fun, but at the same time, is when you have to do it every day. It's like, oh my God, again, another. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again. So it would be better if we could have better resources. I know that Minnesota have passed so many bills, so
Yeah.
they can support better the field, but there are more that we can do. And that's something that I would like to have more, like streamline of funding for programs like early childhood programs across the Minnesota, across the country too.
Yeah. I mean, I echo both of those things. I think the best part for me is getting to work with such compassionate, dedicated people who are really changing things for their communities and changing things for the children and families that they serve. And I get to see that in with each of our partner schools. And it's always just a reminder to me of how lucky I am to do this work. And at the same time, it's really heartbreaking when there are so many barriers and so many struggles, and it feels like there's so much that's outside of our control to be able to support the work. And so I think lack of resources is a frustration, but the people make it all worth it.
Well, the whole point of, inviting you here and talking more about Montessori schools, specifically Siembra Montessori, is to educate our audience. I don't know that people even know that Montessori schools are an option. Do they even understand, how you separate yourselves from other like traditional charter schools and public schools or just daycare centers, to be able to have the foundation and the support in the community through Montessori, I think is really important to share with our community. So thank you both for being here with me today. I appreciate you taking the time out. If I can, Deanna, before I let you go, share with the audience something deep within your soul about what you do and how you can connect with them. And if you would mind speaking in your native language when you say this, I would really appreciate it.
To the community, to say something to the community?
To the community, yes.
En Spanish, ok. No, pues es un honor estar acá y de verdad el trabajo que hacemos en Centro es maravilloso, es hecho para la comunidad y con ustedes y quisiera que vinieran a conocernos, que se dieran la oportunidad de tener sus hijos en una escuela como Siembra Montessori. Montessori no solo transforma la vida de sus niñas, pero transforma la vida de las familias. Nos enseña a ser mejores seres humanos y a entender que desde que nacemos podemos contribuir al ambiente y cambiar lo que nos rodea. Gracias.
I understand Spanish more than I can speak it, and so I understood what you were saying. But if you would mind just translating that for us, what you just said.
I forgot what I said. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. I could tell that what you were saying was really that your heart is there at Siembra and Centro, and that even though you work with children, you're connected with the entire community. And I feel like you were very welcoming in what you said for people to reach out and to learn more about what y'all do.
Yeah, I just summarize. I just invited them to come to Centro and to learn about Siembra and to give the opportunity to the children to come to a preschool. Sometimes, as a Latino community, we prefer to have our youngest children at home and we don't give them the opportunity to come to at school because they think they're probably safer to be with them. So I just, and always I said that Montessori transformed not only the life of their children, but the life of the family. Because when you're learning with your children, you start thinking about things that probably are not aligned with Montessori. And that happened to me. I was like, oh, okay. And my life is much better now because of that, because I had the principles and the values. I respect children. It doesn't mean that I didn't respect them, but I didn't know that the way that we respect them is to give them independence, to give them choice, because sometimes an adult, we think that they are an extension of us and that they just has to obey. So that for me was life changing for anything. So that's what I said.
Yes. Respecting children is very important.
Yeah.
Nora, do you have anything that you would like to say before I let you go?
Thank you, Deanna, for sharing with us today the beautiful work that's happening both with Siembra and across Centro. And I am grateful to be in partnership with you. I know MCM is grateful to be in partnership with you. And I'm excited to see where you take everything next.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again to our very special guests, Deanna and Nora. I appreciate you carving this time out of a very busy schedule that I know you both have. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. I'm going to remove y'all and just do a little bit of housekeeping before I go. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Wow. I hope that this conversation impacted you the same way that it impacted me. I am still learning so much about Montessori schools and the value that they bring to communities in a very culturally specific way. I love that Siembra is virtually tuition free. I don't know what their space is, the availability. They are opening up another classroom. So if you are near South Minneapolis, Chicago, and Franklin area, please reach out, learn a little bit more about them. I was very touched that they have a nutritional program and they use their garden to provide food to families. Like there aren't a lot of daycares that do that for their communities. And I think that it's also always important to talk about the differences that are available to us. So, and understanding that there is trauma associated with immigration. Another thing that I learned today, not understanding that even just leaving your country is a traumatic experience, and it can be. And so I love that we have Siembra Montessori and Centro Tyrone Guzman there in the community. And I hope that you all have learned enough to reach out to them and learn a little bit more about what they do, whether you are looking for a place for your children to learn and develop and grow their mental health, or if you're just in the community and you're looking for ways to support. Maybe you're even a young person at home thinking, oh, wow, I could be a teacher there. Just listen to all of the support that they give their teachers, their instructors, and their staff. The support that they give there is amazing. So there are so many ways the community can support Siembra Montessori. So I hope that you all take the opportunity to do that. So next week, we are back again with the Montessori American Indian Child Care Center. We'll be back next Wednesday, same time, 10 a.m. We have very special guests, and we'll have another conversation about how they are working and connecting to their community. So it'll be a great time for you to join us again. And so do us a favor, like, subscribe, share all of those wonderful things that you do for YouTube. And again, I really, really appreciate you being here with us today. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.